And then reality set in. It started with a little thing like this. Remember the original iPhone, one of the original iPhones? Reflective, that is. That scratching in the background is my cat, who also happened to make it into my last video. Scratching in a litter box, if you don't have a cat, well, at least you don't have to walk them, and carry a bag with you. You just got to clean it up. Always strategically timed between the traffic, the cat clawing away, one or the other when I decide to record one of these. Okay, let's get started. So this video is being recorded early in the morning with less than 9 full calendar days left until the inauguration of Joseph Robinette Biden. The Robinette family heritage is something he's not too vocal about. You should research that on your own. I'm not going to get into that. As of this taping, Parler has been taken down. So, apart from the fact of the great purge on Twitter and Facebook over the past less than a week, ongoing throughout the last several years, but I mean definitely hyped up. Now you have an actual blatant takedown on this, on the magnitude of what they did with good old Alex in the beginning, because of their fear of words. And that's what this is all about. It's about the fear by one group of people of discourse by people that things that may be posted that may expose lies of the legacy media, big tech, and the Marxist globalists who are trying to, well, not even trying, who have already pulled off this great reset, a la the World Economic Forum. Now that is reality. It's not arguable. There is no case against the fact that censorship is gotten completely out of control, that the First Amendment is absolutely dead in the United States of America. Free speech is over. I mean, these are realities. We've learned also over the past several years, there is no justice for these people, these so-called ruling elitists. There's just no justice. Now, there are people out there still hanging on, and this video I put out here for the sake of that, of telling you, you just don't get it, right? There will be justice for no one. If they are wealthy, politically connected, or tied into the Davos mob. And that's the way it is. Their determination to topple Western civilization and the protector of Western civilization, which has been the United States of America as a sovereign nation over the past 100 years, the U.S. has stood to keep Western civilization and keep the barbarians at the gate at bay. We've prevented this for, in 2 world wars. Now, America always did stand for something that was good. And there have been times in my life where I've criticized U.S. foreign policy. But I've come to know over time, and having lived and worked in Capitol Hill, that it never was the policies of the United States government per se. These efforts that people, those who hate America out there, those efforts were things caused by the Central Intelligence Agency and rogue elements within the government bureaucracies and various other alphabet type organizations, some of which the average person is not even aware that they exist. These are the people that maintain private armies, the mercenary armies, and where all those trillions of dollars, as Rumsfeld said 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, that were missing were unaccountable at the Pentagon. That's where that money goes to. So it's not the U.S. taxpayer. It's not the average American citizen. America has saved Western civilization on many occasions. Just like the propaganda regarding the old Crusades. I used to have this, belief from being propagandized that there was this idea of the Crusades was crazy. But that was the beginning. Excuse me. Again, I don't edit my videos, in case this is the first one you're watching. Clear my throat, I clear my throat. I'm sorry. But the Crusades was the first time that the barbarians tried to destroy what the Western civilization in its infancy, while it was being built. And there should be statues of knights with their shields with the cross on it in every city center in every town in Western civilization. Obviously that wouldn't happen, and they would have been torn down by now. So we've come to this point where the court system, the intel agencies, the Congress, and within 9 days of this shooting this video, the presidency, big tech, and the international financial system markets, big pharma, you could tie them all into it. This is the corporatocracy, as I call it, and I believe I've coined that word. Someone may argue with that, but I've written 9 books now. You could see one in the background over here. Codex, my latest. I recommend you get it. That they are in charge. The old world order is in charge, and I've spoken about this at length in several of my previous videos. But I wanted to deal with this idea right now of those that will not accept this concept that Western civilization has collapsed, and that what's coming will be global chaos. And I wanted to emphasize something I said in previous videos, several previous videos, that how what we would call the Democrats or the left, Marxist left movement in the U.S. is going to ultimately implode, and through infighting and through exposure. The media we don't need to worry about. The media is just hanging on. The media's sole goal is to sell commercials. They're just corporate entities that have boards of directors, shareholders, owners that just are trying to turn a profit. So whatever sells. I mean, that's just it. These people, remember, every anchor you see on any of these networks is a multimillionaire. They have no connection to the common person, to the average American. They've none whatsoever. They may look, like they're, and dress and even speak like they're just an average, Joe or Joan. But the reality is they're not. They're multimillionaires living a completely different life with makeup artists, scripts in front of them, writers, sometimes groups of writers. Everything is it's show business. The sets, they're on sets, with lighting, with sound guys. I mean, it's a producers, it's a production. And the production is no different than a series that you may watch on network TV or a movie set. That's exactly what the news is in America, and it has been that way for a long time. It's a well-produced, scripted, written out, on a set for the sole purpose of rather than entertainment. Its sole purpose is to keep you in such a state of mind that you will stay tuned in, become a news junkie, as I call it, and you'll stay in. This is hard lighting, they call that, which I'm not on a set. This is just my little mini front room. That's why I have such the noise of the cars. But yeah, their goal is just to sell commercials. They have no ethics, no morals. That's why they're constantly caught, through Veritas, Operation Veritas, or whatever it's called, and certain cameras, paparazzi as they call them, catch these people being hypocrites. Because they are. They're just actors. They're literally just actors. They're anchors. It's show business. So that their days are numbered. That's why they're pushing this thing about Trump, and they just won't let it go because they don't know what they're going to do. They can't cover Biden. What are they going to do? You can't at a press conference. What are they going to ask? How long can you ask softball questions to a feeble old man? And how many questions could they ask Kamala Harris, who just sits there and giggles? She's just a silly, but rather corrupt, lying person. So anyway, the party, the Democrat Party, the party in power, the party of Davos, will basically implode over the next 6 months. Now the world's going to erupt into chaos. Now I'm going to explain. Let me explain very quickly. I won't make this too long a video, but I'm going to explain first what's happening here and how the world will erupt into chaos. This is something really very important that you need to know this. All right. So I touched on this before, but as I always say, certain things bear repeating. So as you know, that the platform, one of the major tenets of the Biden campaign, which was basically something that appeared on websites because the man only ever spoke maybe a dozen times last year for short periods of time in front of, small gatherings of people from 6 to a dozen or something like that. But the tenets, what the media had parroted and, talked about, and when they would bring on potential people that are serving in this upcoming cabinet and supporters of the Biden administration. Well, this whole idea that they've put forward is that they're going to create jobs by building infrastructure. He's trying to appeal to some elderly Democrat that has some sort of not a direct memory of Roosevelt, but was in school. When they were still teaching history in school, and that people might be aware of the Roosevelt's various programs. These jobs programs and things they put into place after the Great Depression and during World War II. Works projects and things like that. And his idea is to rebuild the infrastructure. Now what's funny about that, and important for you to note, and I've never heard anyone else say this besides me, and certainly no Democrat, and nobody following or voted for Biden, those if anyone ever did vote for him, has realized this. Well, another tenet is the Green New Deal, and if not the Green New Deal, which I think they're going to back away from a little bit, if not a lot, they still want to re-enter. One of the other tenets was we'll re-enter the Paris Accord. Okay. And this calls for the phasing out and elimination, ultimate elimination of fossil fuels, as they call them, basically petroleum-based products, oil, natural gas, as things are refined, diesel, that sort of thing. Now, you cannot have these people are bureaucrats or kids who are the sons and daughters on trust funds, or mommy and daddy, divorced mommy and daddy each give the kids some money. So they don't know anything. If they worked as what they call a barista, which is just a stupid name, serving coffee at a Starbucks or something like that. The reality is they have no real world experience. All right. So they don't know, as I've said before, AOC probably doesn't know what an excavator is. All right. Doesn't understand what the word heavy equipment means. That it refers to machinery that require diesel, petroleum-based products to produce, to run their combustion engines, to do this work of rebuilding and repairing infrastructure, lifting girders, digging through rock, all of that sort of thing. You can't plug in, any of this heavy equipment. It's just not there. Elon Musk doesn't have it. It's not even in the pipeline. It's a pipe dream of people there. The same with flying jets, all right, and military equipment, okay? Apart from nuclear submarines and some of that stuff, everything else requires combustion engines and a lot of fuel, all right? Now, right now, at the present time, as of this taping, the U.S. is energy independent and has all the fossil fuel we need for decades and decades to come. And there's more being found all the time. We haven't even opened up certain areas, all right, where we know, because of our technology today, we know, it's not like the old days where these guys used to, wildcatters or whatever, used to, try to find oil or something like that. We now know, using satellite technology, ground piercing radar, all sorts of technical technologies that will that let us know all of these things. So that's it. How do you eliminate fossil fuels at the same time that you're trying to, or made a promise that you're going to create works projects rebuilding our infrastructure? And make no mistake about it, our infrastructure is in bad shape. Most of our bridges are on the verge of collapse. Our highway systems, roads, rural communities, the stuff underneath the ground is in worse shape than the stuff on top. We have 100-century-old gas lines, sewage pipes, and things like that across the entire nation in every major city. And right now, the only thing has been done, if an inspection is made, or if a bridge fails, or if a sewage treatment or some kind of sewer problem comes up, or there's a gas explosion, then suddenly they go and they fix and repair it at that point. But everything's at the stage of collapsing right now. So the idea of infrastructure repair is a really good idea, but you can't do it with a Green New Deal, or entering the Paris Accord, or phasing out, eliminating fossil fuels. So that's number one. That is going to be that will cause such infighting within the Marxist Democrat Party. Because those who drank the Kool-Aid and who have been pushing these issues and supported them all this time, that this wasn't explained to them. So they have no idea that what an excavator is, that a fire truck, you can no longer say if there's a fire on a third or fourth or fifth story, let alone a 33rd floor, that those huge fire trucks or ambulances, emergency vehicles, that they need to run on fossil fuels and lots of it in order to have the power to save lives. And cranes, whether you want to take down buildings or you want to convert a skyscraper with solar panels on its roof, something's got to take the solar panels up to the top of the roof. You see? And you have to times this. You've got 50 states. I don't know how many cities there are in the United States. I could quick check it now, but I'm not going to. Again, I just go through these videos. I remember being when I was in radio, a radio general manager, I remember something there being like 11,000 stations or something like that. It was over 10,000 stations. So, in various cities. So just, who knows how many cities, and then when you take in the boroughs, little small communities and stuff. So there's tens of thousands of towns and, boroughs, small towns, small cities, big cities all across the United States that have buildings, underground gas, water, sewage pipes, that sort of thing, infrastructure, bridges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Things that connect us. Okay. And there's the power grid, which is teetering on the brink. This past weekend, we saw blackouts over in Europe. There was, I believe, a blackout in Texas yesterday. The grid is in horrible condition. And I spoke about in lengthy about a little anecdotal thing about at a college town where I was working at one point years ago, that they used to have blackouts all the time, and I believe they still do. And I know even where I live here, we've had the power go out for 6 hours at a time and things like that. So infrastructure is crumbling in the United States, and you cannot repair the infrastructure. And by the way, this isn't an overnight works project. This is decades, would take decades to repair the infrastructure in tens of thousands of locations and 10,000 bridges and, miles and miles of highways. It's like the Department of Transportation, somewhere I was at one point, basically described their work as an ongoing project, that when they were fixing a road section here, that by the time they got to the end of repairing that highway, that road section, it was time once again, this one was in need of repair again. So it's an ongoing thing. So you not only have collapsing infrastructure that's in need of imminent repair, but you have ongoing maintenance that requires this heavy equipment that's fossil fuels. All transportation, mostly all transportation. See, because even when you see like electric trains, commuter trains in the cities and stuff like that, most of our electric power is generated by natural gas, which is a fossil fuel. And they want to get rid of all fossil fuels. So that's number one, is going to cause a major infighting in the party. Because it'll be hypocrisy. Because ultimately, if they don't, we have to fix the infrastructure no matter what political, parties in power, though I don't want to get into it, but politics is over. I mean, get that through your head. There are no Democrats or Republicans anymore. It's all one big, there's the puppeteers that I spoke of earlier are in charge right now. Big tech, the corporatocracy. It's a corporatocracy. We've seen that just by them closing down Parler and purging people from social media and what the media has done over this event last week where the power brokers were threatened. Do you see? When small businesses were burned to the ground and innocent people were killed, cops were beaten and shot and all that stuff from last spring through the summer by the Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all these extreme leftists across the entire country, almost on a nightly basis, when they took control and seized power of cities, right? There was nothing done. And it was said, oh, they have the right to free speech or to express themselves and protest. But see, once the halls of power were threatened, it was as if it was blasphemy. Well, think about that. I abhor and I'm against all violence and all protest. I've spoken about that earlier. I think protests are an exercise in futility. I think riots are worse, okay? But there was nobody raising the alarm when when American taxpayers, the people, we the people's businesses, city streets, neighborhoods were being destroyed, pillaged, and our relatives and neighbors and cops were being killed by these leftists, all right, radicals, all right? But suddenly, when a handful of people and their castle, all right, is threatened, it suddenly becomes like some unbelievable outrage. Do you get that? Do you see what I'm really saying here? Do you understand? Oh my God, the rulers, it's okay to destroy and kill Americans, citizens, and their small businesses, and cops in Texas or anywhere else. But God forbid a bunch of radicals, who I am against, because I think it was a stupid move, dare threaten, the power elite. You see? That's another thing nobody's talking about, right? And that's why it's such a big deal, because what's been exposed here, and they're trying to draw attention away from that. But that's what Pelosi is really saying. That's what all these people are coming. Mitch McConnell, people. They're basically, oh my God, the American people are on to us. They realize there's only 30 some Congress people, and 50 senators, on one side, 100 senators, and they, and it's suddenly going like, you mean that a group of, and you count in, some other bureaucrats and various elected officials, you mean like a couple thousand people are trying to tell 300 million people what to do, how to live? See, that's the thing. That's the secret. That's the big secret of the rulers. That's the big secret of the authoritarians that they keep from you. Can't let people know. Don't let them know that. That's why the kings all those years always lived in castles, and used to have like a public beheading or something like that. When someone threatened the castle, right? They were, had their, guts removed in public. Even in the early days of America, people were hanged in public to show, oh, you can't go against the handful of ruling elite, even verbally. And verbally, you're censored and you're erased. And that's what they're doing. They're erasing people, not allowing people to communicate with one another, to express not so much dissent, but just to express their ideas, their thoughts. Now that's a very slippery slope that we are already at the bottom of. And that's what a lot of people haven't come to grips with. It's that in that regard, we've already, Western civilization has fallen and no one realizes it. That's a 25 mile an hour speed limit on that road. Guy just went up doing like 50, 60. So, you understand that? So, anyway, so we know that the hypocrisy within within the is not going to work. Now, I also spoke. There are two other things that I want to talk about, other tenets of their thing, and I'm trying to, again, I don't want to go on too long about this. The Biden administration has promised to also bring in, get rid of these restrictions on countries that have people that have pledged to do evil against America. These so-called handful of countries where terrorism existed. And Biden says he's not only going to open them up and allow those people to flood into the U.S. in any way, shape, or form, but he's going to increase it by 700%, the amount of people that come in. Well, that's going to result in what? Terrorism, right? The only reason we haven't had terrorism is because basically the U.S. has been not allowing, and has been on the other side of the pond, so to speak, has been looking at anyone who tries to enter here and doing background checks on them and things of that nature. So we will see terrorism again in the United States. All right. Now the southern border, he's going to open up that and let people start flooding into the United States, and give them and dangle a carrot in front of them and say, come on in, you get free health care, free welfare, free place to live, free food, whatever you want, just come on up to the US of A. Right? Now, forget it that there's no jobs, because all these small businesses have closed, and I'll get into that too. So you're going to have all these people in. Now, the idea is that, I'm sure there are many just poor farmers and people from Central America that, are scared to death down there because the cartels are, basically running these places. So they come to the United States and they huddle up somewhere and, try to find a life for themselves. But mixed in with all of that, okay? And this is history. This is nothing new. Just ask anybody who works at the border, who lives there. Hell, I lived in California. I could tell you about the stuff, and that was years ago. Well, mixed in with that are the cartels, the human traffickers, and the gangbangers. And so that's going to increase crime exponentially, and then unemployment's going to skyrocket because you let in millions more people in a time when all these small businesses close. So Biden's latest announcement was that he's only going to give support money for small businesses owned by blacks, Latinos, and other minorities, so to speak. So I don't know if that's some kind of signal or what they call a dog whistle to people from Central, South America, and Mexico to come up here and we'll give you money to open a business or something. Meanwhile, all these American small businesses, they say half of those restaurants and places like that in the cities, because of these lockdowns, which were unjustified, are never going to come back to business. And all those employees have lost their jobs. Not to mention, as I previously mentioned, many service jobs just simply won't be existing in 2021, 2022, and 2023 onward. Why? Because we have kiosks, and you just swipe your card, type in you want a Big Mac, French fries, bam, hamburger in the back falls down, and you got a manager, maybe assistant manager, somebody who knows maintains the thing. Maybe some high school kid passes the bag to you. Looks at the receipt, looks at your slip from the kiosk and that, and says, "Okay, here." Jane Doe, you're up. Okay, so elimination of all those kinds of jobs. The old traditional service jobs at all the fast food restaurants. In an era where fast food is a gold mine, a little tip. Get in the business of, basically delivery and pickup windows. Anybody who manages a restaurant that survives should take their front window and rip it out and put in a move move that area wherever it's exposed to, move the seating somewhere else, was on the other side of that window, and turn that into a walk-up, order pickup window for efficiency, fast turnaround, that type of thing. That's the future. Because these masks and these lockdowns, that's not going away, right? They don't want, because again, that's the whole idea of closing down the bars and the churches and all that kind of stuff. They just like they did with social media in the virtual world, they're doing in the real world, and that is preventing people from having conversations, discourse, communicating, getting together and saying, hey, something's fishy. They don't want that. And then they sure as heck don't want the person like me or somebody else coming out and saying, laying it out. 1, 2, 3, here's the truth, and if you don't believe me, go, here's a link to it. That kind of thing. They don't want that. So that's going to cause mass chaos and unemployment in the U.S. I'm going to take a break. And we're back. I normally wouldn't have broken for the phone call. I would have just told them to call back. Was somebody trying to sell me some kind of website services. Have you noticed an increase in spam in your email and spam phone calls? Like all these sleaze bags have, like, for a while there it was like it wasn't as bad, but it was like seemed to have like been pushed back. But now suddenly there's been a major increase in this. What a bunch of sleazy lying. People trying to sell you, weird stuff, nutrigenics or whatever on emails. I'm starting to get the type of emails I haven't seen since the early days of the internet, when the word spam was created. It's like totally re-emerging now. It's unbelievable. And the phone calls. I got rid of my car because I'm just living free and having a time of my life. Okay? I do these videos for the benefit of you, and I get these calls. An important call about your car insurance. This is an important call about your vehicle, right? I get these things in the, junk mail, and I don't have a car. I don't have car insurance, It's just, it's laughable. And of course, half these things are just like chatbots, which is even funnier. So all of these things I've been talking about, how the people who supported those who have just seized power of Western civilization and are toppling the Republic, the United States Republic, there's going to be such infighting and such chaos. And that chaos is happening all over the world. So we're going to see the world chaos. Take the Middle East, for example. Biden's administration is going to bring back people like Kerry and those types of neocons, neoliberals. They're all on these early lists of people that are going to immediately come in day one. And they're going to allow, renegotiate the Iran deal. So allow Iran to build a nuclear weapon. And give cash, to Iran so that it could resurrect. Have you heard anything from Hezbollah, ISIS, Al Qaeda? No, very little. Europe's had a few problems here and there, but the U.S. and most of the Middle East there's been this growing peace negotiations and trade agreements among the various countries. Well, that's all going to disintegrate literally within several months, because they're all against Iran. And so it'll ultimately end up that these countries that have forged, there's a cattail there, these countries that have forged agreements with Israel, who are also against Iran, you're going to see, because of the efforts of the inept Biden. Remember, it was under the Trump administration that all these that ISIS was destroyed, Al Qaeda was pushed back, the Taliban basically came to the table and said it was going to stop doing stuff. Troops were coming home, right? In other words, world peace. The idea of world peace and somewhat calm happening over the past several years should have been like celebrated, right? Because that's a big deal, especially in a nuclear world and a world of all sorts of other things that they can do, right? All right, well, all that's going to fall apart instantly. And what's going to happen is these new alliances, these peace alliances that have been forged, well, they're going to, if the U.S. is not going to be a part of that, because what's going to happen is if Iran starts developing a nuclear weapon in tandem with those other Arab nations that have signed on agreements with Israel, they're just going to declare war on Iran, and they're going to destroy that. And there's going to be massive war in the Middle East, global chaos. And remember, Britain is in crazy lockdown, and the EU is totally out of control. We just don't hear that because the average American doesn't watch European news from overseas. Like, they don't know what's going on. The average American doesn't know that the communist Chinese, have basically, seized control over Hong Kong. And they don't know that. And Biden's going like, we need better relations with China. I was like, what are you talking about? They've got these Uyghurs in concentration camps. They're selling organs, harvesting organs from these people in their gulags. They've just eliminated freedom in Hong Kong. All right? And you've got the NBA and all these people, and Apple and all these other places with reciprocal agreements and like praising China. So the world is about to erupt in major chaos. And at the same time, the U.S. is no longer going to be a sovereign nation, because one of their other tenets is to eliminate. They're against nationalism. They don't want the U.S. to be a sovereign nation. They want it all to be run by the Davos set. So who's going to stop? See, in other words, if this would have been in the era of Hitler, and the U.S. would have been fallen the way we've fallen now, there would be no one to stop Hitler. You see? Biden would have been like, well, we need to talk. We need to, yeah, right. So that's it. And that's the message today. Just going to keep it fairly brief. That the idea is the Democrat Party will implode, just like the Republican Party is absolutely over. The United States of America, as we known it as a republic, is over. Without the First Amendment, without justice, the U.S. Constitution, the rule of law, okay, there is no country. All is left is a document with words. We the people. There's no. It's just lip service, and these people going, we must fight. Keep the faith. For what? For who? What? Oh, Trump will run in 2020. No. What we've witnessed over the past 4 to 5 years, and most recently, is that there is no justice. And apart from getting tax breaks, forget it. Anything with the military, of course, because they want to protect the power. But the military is a chain of command, as I mentioned before. Most people in the military will follow that chain of command. Most of the DC planners. And those who won't follow the chain of command, they will be, punished, eliminated. And like I said, we don't really need the actual soldier anymore, because we have technology that's incredible. I mean incredible technology. Robotic technology. It's out of this world, literally, and some of it is out of this world. So, take care of yourself. Turn off the news. I'm quitting Twitter in 9 days. And if Pollard isn't back, I was going to keep a Pollard thing just as a way to communicate to you all and stuff like that. But I guess I'll do videos from time to time and things like that. But, live your life. You know, while you have a chance to breathe, there's a little bit of breath here. Maybe they'll give us those other the 1,400 balance from that $600. I don't know if they're going to do that or not. They promised us 2,000. Take that money and don't waste it on something. Don't waste it on paying certain bills either. You know, put it on things that are going to assure your family's safety, security, and that you have the things you need to live. Because there's another thing about scarcity that's most likely. Or if we're in a grid down situation. You know, who knows? Whatever. And for crying out loud, don't be afraid of germs. Just use common sense. We did it since the dawn of man. We've survived. We have an immune system that's built in our body. Just don't eat too much junk food, you know? Every now and then, eat some things like some broccoli or garlic or, you know, things that have, you know, vitamin D3. And if you're in an area that's sunny, you know, where you have a spring, summer, where you really get, you know, an intense sunshine, go out there and don't slather on all that UV stuff to keep afraid you're going to get cancer from the sun. The sun is we're like plants. We need the sun. That's vitamin D3. That boosts your immune system. You'll be healthy. So do that kind of thing. Live life. Live well. Don't fall victim to these people, protests and riots and, you know, the plan or whatever. Be a realist. Reality is Western civilization is destroyed. It no longer exists. Free speech is gone and it's not coming back. It's not coming back. When Rome fell, it fell. It didn't come back. When Greece fell, it fell. It didn't come back. You know, when Great Britain had was the global power, and it fell, we had a hand in giving it the final death blows with our American Revolution. It fell when Spain, who did all this crazy, horrible things in the Americas, when they fell, and it never came back. We have to accept the fact. It's hard for you to deal with. But these people control the courts. They control both houses of Congress. They have the presidency now, right? They have the intelligence agencies, which is an oxymoron. They have big tech, all media. So where's this justice going to come from? Nowhere. This was an orchestrated plan. They've been planning this for years and years. Highly organized, highly mapped out. Contingency plans all along the way. They've got contingencies for contingencies. It doesn't matter. Look at the Supreme Court. They put 3 so-called conservative justices on there, and they all said, nah, we're not going to listen to you. Big tech has dirt on everybody. The intel agencies threaten people. They threaten their lives and their families, their kids, their wives, their daughters, their second cousins twice removed. All right? These people don't care about you. You're a cattle to them. You're cattle. You used to be cattle on their tax farm, but now they don't even need your taxes, really, because they're creating blockchain money. They're just printing it out of thin air, or creating it out of thin air. They used to print it. They don't need us anymore. They don't care about us. They're going to cull the herd. They're trying to kill us off. So get that through your thick skulls. Anyway, I don't mean to be depressing. Look, just live and let live. Get out of the cities. If you're in the cities, man, I wouldn't want to be you. But if you're on the outskirts of town like I am, or if you're in rural America, just live your life. Grow a garden, get some hobbies, live cheap, but live well. I've got everything I want. Like I said, my taxes, mortgage, and insurance are under $200 a month. Think about that. Think about that. I got rid of my TV service because I don't want it. I got rid of my car because I don't need to go. Where do I need to go? I can walk. I can walk to a grocery store even though I grow most of my food. I can walk to a doctor's office if I have to, go for a checkup. There's a dentist a couple of blocks up the street. Or you could just get an Uber or a cab or a med van or whatever they call them. You see what I mean? Or a bus if you're that kind of person. I don't like the buses. I never liked riding buses. But whatever the case may be, you can live really, really inexpensively and live well. I've got a 2-bedroom house with 1.5 baths and a backyard that I grow food for more than half the year. and my mortgage, and insurance is under $200 a month. And so think about that. You can do it. Just live well, live cheap. Find some friends, family. If you're fortunate, I'm divorced, but if you're married, just make a life. Just live. Don't get caught up in all this hate, caught up in all this craziness, insanity the media is trying to just spew out every day so you stay glued. I've got friends who'll email me, hey, check this video out about this, and it's some guy saying, so things are gonna get better, you're gonna do this, I'm like, come on, man. Just see the writing on the wall. I saw the writing on the wall a couple of years ago. Listen to my songs. They tell it all. I wrote 9 books, and I've got dozens and dozens of songs on like Google Music. They're on Spotify and Apple and all those other places too. YouTube Music, I mean. So anyway, that's that. I'll leave you with that. Good luck. I hope you find happiness. I hope you don't get yourself so caught up and worked up on all these issues. There was life before this. There was life before social media. Of course now, they look more like that. But, and get rid of this. Those are the problems. Just think about it. Facebook didn't exist most people weren't on Facebook like 10, 12 years ago. The iPhone, and stuff wasn't happening for most people like a decade, 12 years ago or so. So all this stuff is just fairly recent. So unless you're 18 years old, and I don't think any 18-year-old would want to watch my video. If you do, welcome. But if you're any kind of any person who's gone who's grown up and has lived a little bit in the real world, what life was like before this obsession. It's crazy, I've heard some people refer to it like these black mirrors. There's some mysticism about that. It's like mirror, mirror on the wall. Forget it. It's nothing. It didn't exist, and we were all happy. We were doing just fine. People want to get back to build back better, or the good old days, whichever ideology you're sucked into. The point was, in both of those instances, there wasn't social media, there weren't smartphones. The internet was free, a free form of expression without any censorship whatsoever. And TV wasn't news, was the news about what was going on. It wasn't, and when you watched a TV show or a movie, it wasn't driving some weird social issue at you or some kind of identity politics or crazy stuff. You watch an hour show and, 2/3 of it is basically filled with some kind of identity politics, driving a social issue at you. And then you might get 10 minutes of actually of the story. The rest is just this stuff they're trying to normalize. Anyway, listen to my music. Live your life. Read my book. Talk to you soon. And maybe not. Maybe they'll block me. But if so, last time we talk, I'll do fine. And so will you. Take care.